All right, today we have a special episode or video of an individual who had a unique experience that he actually spent many, many hours training for. It's Dr. Jake Hegge. He ran 135 miles in the northern Minnesota wilderness. And you actually broke the record.
I did.
It's
I
an
did.
event that happens every year, and I just felt that his experience of determination would be great for everyone to listen and hear. Not that I expect anybody to set the goal to do this. I would never do that. If I run 3 miles at this point in my life, I'm very happy. So let's get on with it. Dr. Jake has some wonderful details of how he got through this race with the temperatures, the snow, and pulling a sled, as you can see on the thumbnail. Go ahead, Jake. I got to let you.
Yeah,
after
yep.
this.
So I've been doing ultra marathons for probably 10 plus years. And just so you know, an ultra marathon is basically any race over the standard marathon, 26.2 distance. So this race that I did is way up in northern Minnesota, specifically International Falls, which is right on the border of Canada and Minnesota. So the race is the Arrowhead 135. It's been going on for quite a long time, and they actually have 3 different divisions: a bike, a cross-country ski, and a foot division. And the goal is to go from International Falls to Cook, Minnesota on the Arrowhead snowmobile trail. Now, the kicker is that it's at the end of January, which is actually one of the coldest times of year up there. And if you know anything about International Falls, it's called the ice box of the nation because it's one of the coldest places in the continental U.S. So the year that I did it last year, it got down to about negative 30 degrees. And this has always kind of been on my bucket list for events, and I just decided to give it a go.
Before we go any farther, Jake, I think you better tell them a little bit about yourself, because right now people are probably wondering, are you okay? How many people actually do this?
Totally.
But no, Jake is. Go ahead, tell me what your background.
So I've been doing, like I said, ultras for 10 plus years. I've actually raced all over the world, over in France, you name it, over in California, down in Florida, North Carolina. I've been doing this whole ultra marathon thing for a long time.
They're typically 100 miles?
Yeah, anywhere from 50K to 100 miles. I've done, gosh, so many races over the years, 50 plus finishes at various races. So the unique thing with these ultras is you're always looking for that next challenge. And Arrowhead is notoriously one of the hardest races out there for this reason, because it's in the winter, middle of nowhere, and it's relatively, self-supported. So I was just kind of looking for that next challenge, and this was it.
So, and I do want to say, as we mentioned, he set the record. It only took 20... How many hours?
28 hours and 30 minutes.
And you beat the record by how many?
Like three and a half, something like that.
Hours.
Yeah.
So you were way in front of the pack.
Yeah.
So you want to show them your trophy?
Yeah. So here's the finisher trophy, or I guess the first place trophy. So yeah, it was a good year. Quite a few of my friends were doing it too. A really good friend of mine actually took second, and she was the first female, and she finished second overall, and she also broke the record as well.
Wow.
So
Great.
quite impressive. Yeah, so the race, like I said, it's up in northern Minnesota. They allow 150 racers, and you actually have to qualify for the race. You have to submit a resume. They don't just let anyone do it. You have to submit like a race resume with your history and performances and why you should be allowed to do this event, because obviously it's super dangerous. The dropout rate is really high, and the race directors make a point of, like, they want people to obviously, succeed, but they also want to make the event itself challenging, which is...
They want them to leave vertically, walking
yes,
out,
exactly.
and not horizontal.
Exactly.
And that's not even a joke, is it? I
No,
mean, like you said, you're out in the middle of the wilderness with those temperatures.
Yep.
Bad things could happen.
So yeah, 135 miles, and there's only 3 checkpoints along the way: mile 35, mile 70, and mile 110. And basically, you just go there, check in. You can refuel on some food and water, and then you're you're back out there.
What are you pulling that sled for?
So the sled actually is needed. They have mandatory gear just in case something were to happen. So you're required to bring a negative 20-degree sleeping bag, a bivy sack, a portable stove with obviously gas, 64 ounces of water, 3,000 calories of food, extra gloves, hat, jacket, pants. What else was in there? I mean, it ended up being probably about like 40 pounds.
Sure.
Like if you want to spend a lot of money, you can obviously, get some fancier equipment and lower the weight. But yeah, the whole sled itself was probably about 40 pounds.
And you pull that the whole way.
Yep, you have to pull it the whole way. They can pull at any point. They can, have to check your stuff at the checkpoint. And once you finish, make sure that you have all the necessary gear so you're not skimping on it.
So like you could throw some off halfway through the race and keep
Yeah,
going. They don't want
not
that.
recommended.
Okay. Wow. So how did you feel? I don't know if I should jump into this, but let's go at the beginning. Does everyone take off at once?
Yeah,
or is it one
so
at a
they let
time?
the bikers go first, then they let the cross country skiers go, and then the runners. And it's really cool. It's dark out, and the gun going off is actually a bunch of fireworks. So as soon as the fireworks go off, go for it. So obviously the runners are last to take off, and I just remember very vividly, in the dark, all of these blinky lights, way up in front of me. It's actually mandatory that you have some LED blinkies on the front and back of you because it's a snowmobile trail, and obviously you don't want to get taken out by a
So they're all
snowmobiler.
red?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I just remember seeing all these blinky lights way out in front of the trail, and yeah, basically I was like, I gotta catch them. So I took it out very, very fast. But early on, the trail was actually fairly packed, meaning like I wasn't sinking into the snow. The sled had some pretty good glide to it, so I was moving pretty quick early on.
So, like the first marathon, only the first 26.2 miles. I mean, you're feeling fairly fresh.
Yeah,
yet?
yeah. I mean, you have to look at it as like, hey, I'm going to be out here for 30, 40, 50 hours. You really don't know. I'm totally entering a world of unknown distance and conditions. So, my number one goal was obviously just get it done at all costs. So, yeah, I mean, but you take it easy early on to make sure that you mentally and physically
Sure.
can finish it out
And
later.
you said you came out of the hole or the start maybe a little
Very
fast.
very fast.
Did you settle down within the first few miles, or did it take a while?
That was kind of my mindset going into it, is take it out a little fast to at least take advantage of the good conditions.
Sure.
The temperature was probably like -10 to start, but the snow conditions were fast, so you kind of got to get it while it's good. But then you roll into mile 35. It's actually a gas station. You can go in there, fill up on your food and water. They check your stuff, and then you take off and go to the next one. But around then, it was probably like noon, 1 o'clock, and the temp had actually warmed up to probably like 15, 20 degrees, and the snow had actually gotten a little bit soft. So you could just feel like the sled had a little bit more drag to it. As you're stepping in, you're sinking a little bit more. But yeah, 35, I was still feeling good, and honestly felt pretty good all the way up until mile 70, the second checkpoint. Went in there, changed out some clothes just to get some dry layers on. But I remember leaving that checkpoint, heading back onto the trail, and I just got chilled to the bone. And the biggest thing with these winter ultra marathons is avoiding sweat, because as soon as you start to sweat, your body just gets obviously a little bit more exposed to the wind, and once you get chilled, you're way more likely to get hypothermia, and then it's game over. So I left this aid station, and I was like, I just put on some fresh layers, I should be good. But all of a sudden I just got chilled to the bone, so I actually stopped. I grabbed a heavier jacket, threw that on, and just kind of hiked for a little bit until I could get my body temp up. Probably 5-10 minutes, and then I actually started to go the complete opposite way of being chilled to actually getting like overheated. I started to feel that I was sweating, so I was like, I got to get this jacket off, and took it off, and then was able to kind of moderate the temp and through ventilation with my zipper to just get some vent going, so I wasn't getting too toasty.
So if we look at the thumbnail, or maybe we'll have some other footage or some pictures in this if you're looking on YouTube. You told me you're just wearing, it's not like you're wearing a big puffy coat to stay warm. It's 10 below. I don't know how that I can see your core staying warm, but what about your hands and your feet? It seems like if it was me, I would be. I just don't
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
that.
So, I mean, good quality socks, obviously, our big one. And honestly, I didn't have any hand or foot issues the whole time, thank goodness. I think it was because I was just keeping the intensity so high that I
Yeah.
just kept circulation going. And I never felt like I was overworking, but I also felt like I never needed to, like, just walk and slow down either.
So we got to the second checkpoint now. We're past that. You're at mile 70. It seems like in that dry, cold weather that you would need copious amounts of water to get through this
Yep.
race, and you had 64 ounces in your back, in the
Yeah,
sled.
64 ounces in the sled. I mean, you can carry it on you, but then you're at risk for obviously it freezing. So I had the water in a thermos, then tucked away in a cooler to make sure it didn't
Yeah.
freeze. But yeah, I unfortunately didn't plan the best in terms of the hydration. I actually was running out of water prior to getting to the checkpoint. So running a little dehydrated, but I took my time at the aid station, made sure I, extra hydrated basically
Sure,
before the next
before you
one.
left. So
Exactly.
dehydration wasn't a problem for you in
No,
particular?
not this time.
I'm
No.
assuming that's a common thing
It is.
in
It
any of these
is. Yep.
events.
And yeah, it's like a kind of fine line of like, how much do you carry on you? But, if you have too much, it's just going to weigh you down. But usually you play it a little bit on the
Right.
safer side. So,
So you get out a checkpoint at 70 miles, and this is 15 hours into it or something
Yep.
of that
Yep.
nature. It's light?
no, it was pitch dark out.
Okay.
Yes, totally dark out at that time.
And so you got one more checkpoint and then the finish.
Yep.
So psychologically, you're like, I'm over half done, or you don't even think about that.
I didn't even think about it. It was because I knew the night was going to be the hardest point. Because you have your headlight on, you're on this, kind of wider snowmobile trail, and you're not going to see a thing for hours.
I
right?
mean, you got people racing in
No,
front of you, behind
no.
you.
Unfortunately, I was out and kind of in the lead for the runners. Occasionally, I would see like a biker that was, maybe walking their bike up the hill
Oh,
or something.
sure.
But very, very few people from mile 70 to the finish. Maybe 4 or 5 other people.
What about snowmobiles? Or do they close it down for the race?
No, so they start the race on a Monday, specifically to avoid any heavy snowmobile
Oh.
traffic. But there was quite a few towards the end. But you just, run on the side of the trail, move over, stop, to let them go.
And didn't you say something about a groomer, snowmobile
Yes,
groomer? Kinda got
yeah,
in the way?
probably around like mile 90 or so. I was coming down the trail and I saw a big snowmobile groomer come right out in front of me, and he's laying down fresh track, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be terrible. And I step into it and I sink down like 4 or 5 inches, and my sled has all this extra drag, and so I'm literally following a snowmobile groomer for like 4 or 5 miles, like. I hope he doesn't go the rest of the way because this would take extra long. But I mean, yeah, that's as fresh as snow can get, basically. So yeah, that was a little disappointing. But he pulled off after a few miles, and then it kind of got a little bit more speedy. So
Sure. He must have known the race was going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then between 70 and when's the next check? The third check?
110 was the third and final checkpoint.
And
Yep.
things went fairly well outside the snowmobile
Yep,
groomer,
yes.
the chills, and you got through that.
Yeah, so probably around mile 100, a few miles after the groomer. Like I said, one of the tough things is you're out there in the dark, middle of nowhere. You have this little headlight. You can see maybe 20 feet in front of you. So I started to actually hallucinate about mile 100. And I started hearing some wolves. So I stopped, these are a real thing up here. I should double check. So I stopped, looked around with my headlight, couldn't see anything. Like, okay, we're good. Maybe I'm just, hearing things.
So you could hear 'em howling?
Yep,
or-
hear some howling. And I saw some tracks earlier too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's like, well, I know they're out here.
Right.
But so then kept going, heard it a second time, and I stopped and looked around, didn't see anything. And I was like, okay, whatever. You just keep going. And I heard it a third time, was like, well, if they get me, they get me. So I just keep
you're not
on
gonna
running.
outrun 'em.
No, exactly.
Yeah, right,
Exactly. But one of the cool highlights of the race too is obviously you're pulling a sled, so you have to pull the sled up the hills, but you get to ride the sled on the downhill. So that was probably my favorite highlight of acting like a little kid, riding your sled full of gear, going 25, 30 miles per hour down
Pretty
the hill.
big hills.
Oh,
some
very
of them.
big hills. Very big
Of course,
hills.
you got to get up.
Yes. Yeah. I did take a pretty significant wipeout. There was a sharp left turn and I didn't steer fast enough and I just totally ate it and flipped it and rolled into the woods.
You
But
didn't hit a tree.
no, thankfully.
So
Thankfully.
you just shook it off and got up.
Yeah, I laughed about it and then I just kept going.
This is after the wolves?
uh
Can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it was after.
It was
the
later
Wolves.
in the race,
Yes.
though.
Yep. Yep.
So mentally, are you in and out of it at that point when you got? I remember the one point I read the article and you said, "Oh, I've only got a marathon to
Yes.
go."
Yeah.
I mean, only a marathon.
Yeah.
Obviously it's.
Yeah. So after that last checkpoint, I was like, okay, like you said, only a marathon. I knew I could get it done. It's just one foot in front of the other, however long it takes. And I think it still took me, 7-8 hours to cover that last 26.2. But the last bit of the course was fairly challenging too, with it got really windy and it started to snow, and I just remember getting pelted in the face sideways, like, this sucks, why am I doing this? But I was like, the faster you run, the faster you're done. And I looked down at my watch and I'm going like 13-minute miles, even though I'm actually running. But
Did you
yeah.
experience any? I would imagine joints, muscles, something's got to be tearing you apart.
Yeah, I did strain my calf, probably around that 110 actually after the last checkpoint, and it was just every single push off was pretty painful. But at that point, like, everything hurts. Right, you just kind of get used to it. And that's what I kind of say in some of these is like you just have to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and you just keep on moving. It's not like anything was broken per se. It's just sore.
Right. I think it's different because how old are you?
31.
31. What's the oldest person that's done this? Do you know?
Good question. Gosh, I'd be willing to bet into the 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like a wimp. I mean, I start getting a calf pull on a 3-mile run. I just stop and walk because I don't want it to I don't want it to ruin my summer. For running for the rest of the year. But wow.
True.
So you finish. I mean, everyone was cheering, or is there anybody there at all?
Yeah, so the finish, like I said, it started to snow, and the last 5 miles were really long. The snow was really heavy and sticky, so the sled itself just was really hard to pull. And I actually recall trying to ride down the sled on some of these hills, and I would jump on the sled to go, and it would just stop. And I was like, this sucks. I actually have to pull the sled downhill. There's no glide to it anymore. And then you just start to question, okay, maybe the finish is around this corner, and you go around the corner, nothing. Dang it, maybe it's around the next corner. Yeah. And so that just goes on for a few more miles, but you're obviously getting closer. And then, I finally came around the corner, and you just see this orange snow fence and the finish line. It's a slight uphill. I was like, I got to run it in. And in my mind, I'm sprinting. And then I see a video afterwards. I'm like, wow, that looks really painful. So, finished. And then saw some familiar faces. And then I was like, you guys, I got to get inside. And so we went into it finishes at this big resort, and they do the gear check. And I just remember as soon as I sat down after the race, my body just shut down. Just
So you got across the finish line and you just didn't collapse?
No, I knew I had to get inside.
Yep.
Just because as soon as I sat down, it was game over.
Right.
So went inside. They do the gear check to make sure I still had all my stuff, and I just remember sitting down. Just there's a photo, I should find it for you guys, of me just covered with a hood over my head, giving a thumbs up, and I just looked completely dead to the world.
So what do? You sleep for a day after that, or what's the recovery?
So I tried to. I laid in the hotel bed, and my legs just ached. Anytime I would move over, it was like, oh, that hurts. But eventually I fell asleep and took a nice shower.
2 days, 3 days, a week before you could walk around without issues?
Because of the calf strain, it took quite a long time.
Sure.
I mean, I had no desire to, run or anything either. So it was basically just kind of hobble
crazy.
around.
You have sanity.
Oh,
there.
yes. Yeah, you got to enjoy the downtime too. So the post-race highs.
Yeah, so why don't we, you're the ideal person to take care of yourself because all your running, but you're a doctor of physical
Yep.
therapy. You graduated, what, 10 years ago or 8?
Yeah, 8 years ago,
Yeah, who's counting?
right?
But anyways, and you have your own therapy clinic.
Yep.
You work with a lot of athletes. You're a running coach as part of your business.
Yes. Yep.
You want to talk about that in case there's some people who want to get some
Yeah.
tips?
Yep.
Because you're obviously an expert.
So yeah, I also have like a running coach business where I, assist people in training for events like this. Like I said, I had a couple other athletes doing the event as well. But basically, making sure that they're prepared for the event as well. And that's why I felt, confident going into this is, building up that training block and, doing something specific to address, covering 135 miles. You can't just, get off the couch and do this thing, right? Even experienced, marathoners, ultra marathoners, this is kind of one of those, extreme events.
Right.
So yeah, with the coaching side of things, working with individuals of all abilities in all sorts of goals from, beginner 5Ks all the way up to, the Arrowhead 135.
Wow. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think this is something that. Are there a lot of coaches like you out there for running? Or?
We're kind of a unique breed, having the physical therapy background with the running coach, because you have to wear the different hats, right? Is the progression proper for training load, but are you doing enough additional mobility, stability to supplement the training side of things too?
Things
right?
like core exercise, hip things that. Like we talked about before, a lot of runners may not address that.
Exactly.
And they're having problems with injuries as a result of weak muscles in the hips.
Exactly. So like a race like this, for example, right? It's not just go out there and run. It's, do you have good core strength, good hip stability to pull a sled? So the training's looking like, doing some heavier weightlifting, squats, lunges, working on some step ups to, kind of simulate climbing the hills,
Right.
things like that.
And you're a father, right?
Yep, 2 little ones, 4 and 2 years old.
Did you pull your kids
Yes.
for part of the training?
Oh, yes, definitely. There's some pretty funny videos out there of me pulling the 4-year-old. Yeah, I'd hook him up on the sled. We'd go over to the Great River Trail, and yeah, we would just run down. And
You wouldn't do a marathon with
No. I think the longest we would make it was like 8 miles, and I basically would just fill the sled. It was the nice sunny days where it's not too cold. I'd fill the sled with toys and snacks. I was like, all right, buddy, here we go.
Yeah, I think that's, with my daughter when she was that age, I used to run, and we had one of those running things in the summer.
Yep.
I didn't take her out and pull around. But, it was fun for me, and I think she's having fun. I mean, she's a runner now. She just ran her first half marathon.
Nice.
She's 26 years old, and, next week. Friday, yeah. Anyways, April.
Yeah.
My memory. So, yeah, I just can imagine how that is going to affect your children's
Definitely.
future.
And I have one of those like kid runners, if you've ever seen them. Instead of the normal like push strollers, it's
Okay.
actually a pole. It just kind of wraps around your waist, and there's like a little chariot thing that they basically sit in
really?
the back. So really kind of simulates the whole sled pulling motion as well.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was a valuable training tool as well.
So if someone does want to get a hold of you and they're interested in your services, we'll have a link below the video. You can click on that, get to the site that they
Awesome.
can get a hold of you. So,
Awesome.
wow. I don't know if I feel exhausted or just all pumped up just to listen to such an adventure.
Yeah, it is quite the adventure. And that's ultimately why, do these things, right? Is like finding those unique things to push your body and your mind, to the next limits. A marathon obviously is challenging in itself, but, there's something unique about doing these extreme ultra marathons where you're going to go to, I kind of call it the pain cave, right? If you're going to a place that you normally wouldn't go on a, day-to-day life, or even in a marathon, right? You're going to experience a lot of, physical fatigue, and you might hit the wall, but you're not going to be out there for, 20, 30 hours and, experience what, extreme, sleep deprivation or dehydration or being out in the wilderness, hallucinating to wolves. It just kind of creates these unique experiences to pull from for the future.
Glad you enjoyed it. No, really, it is. It's nice to experience it through your story because I'm not even going to think about going 5 miles
It's
on
all
a
good. It's
snowmobile
all
trail.
good. So they do actually have another winter
Whoa.
ultra out there that's on my bucket list someday, the Iditarod. So the sled dog race actually has a human version as well.
Oh, really?
There's a 350 and a 1,000. Yeah, it's on my bucket list.
350 what? Kilometer?
Miles.
Miles.
Miles through the Alaskan wilderness.
You're not. Are you going to do this one again?
I'll do it again someday. I would probably use. I think there's some valuable lessons that I learned, from this year
Yeah.
that I would do it again. The tough thing, honestly, is living here in the Midwest is committing to a training cycle throughout the winter.
Well, especially when you work and you have a family, and then you've got to get training. in there.
Yep. So
And you
especially the winter, it's dark, pretty much all day. So you'd finish up work like, do I really want to go outside and train, in the cold and the
Yeah.
dark and whatnot? But I mean, it's perfect training grounds for
Sure,
something like
right,
this.
right.
So
All right, very good. I hope you enjoyed Jake's experience. And if you haven't heard of the 135, the Arrowhead 135, now you know it's up there. And if you're from Minnesota, Wisconsin, you might want to go up and watch it, huh?
oh yes.
All right, thank
yes,
you so
thanks
much,
for having
Jake.
me. It was a
Appreciate
blast.
it.